Sir, is good afternoon. Discuss about structural elucidation of organic compounds. Before going to this, we should know about organic compounds. I think most of our participants are from chemistry background. I no need to spend much time on this. Organic compounds will be having elements of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen and sulfur. Generally, if we want to find the empirical formula or molecular formula, we will be doing the elemental analysis and we will be getting the empirical or molecular formula for known compounds. For known compounds, it is not a problem. Directly we can do the elemental analysis and we can confirm it whether the compound is a real one or not, or it is an impaired one. Any organic compound, it will be having functional group. Functional group will decide the physical and chemical properties of that particular compound. So we have to find out the functional group and basic skeleton present in the organic compound. So in order to do this, we should have a knowledge of certain points. First, we will discuss these points. Later, we will go for spectroscopy introduction and we will solve some problems. Structural elucidation topic, if you want to understand, have these points, you should have a strong knowledge on these points. First, we should know the importance of the structure and stereochemistry of organic compounds, reactivity of organic compounds, and stability of organic compounds, and electronic factors and steric factors. These are two important for organic, two parameters for organic chemist. Whether electronic factors will decide the physical and chemical properties of our organic compound, or steric factors, that means stereochemistry will play a major role. Or sometimes what will happen, we will expect something and something may happen because of these domination of one factor. Sometimes steric factor will dominate, sometimes electronic factor will dominate. That's what we should be able to, being a chemist or being an organic chemist, we should be able to judge whether steric factor is dominating or electronic factor is dominating. If you are going to the electronic factor, it is nothing but the number of electrons present in the organic compound. Because of those electron density, what will happen to the reactivity of our compound? Stereochemistry, we know very well from last 2 days, we are seeing a lectures on stereochemistry, and stereospatial presence of a functional group or substituents will decide the physical and chemical properties of our organic compound. These are the two important parameters before going to the structural elucidation. And I may not discuss this thermodynamic factor and kinetic factor. This being in a structural elucidation, we may not require these factors much. And one more thing is knowledge on spectroscopy. We should have a knowledge on 5 instrumental techniques. One is elemental analysis, UV visible spectroscopy, FTIR spectroscopy, mass spectroscopy, and NMR spectroscopy. These 4 spectroscopies knowledge we should have. And I may not cover all these spectroscopies with full basic principles and the topics related to these spectroscopies. Just I will discuss the highlights of these spectroscopies and we'll go for the problem solving. Yes, as I discussed, electronic factor and steric factor. You see here in these compounds, acidity, if you see, carboxylic acid acidity, because of the substituents, acidity of these compounds is decreasing because of purely electronic factor. That means electron density will decide the reactivity or the properties of these molecules. This is purely based on electronic factor. You see the presence of these nitro, chloro, and hydroxy. These are withdrawing groups. Withdrawing group here, donating group. We know very well. Similarly here, withdrawing group. If it is present on ortho, meta, para, what will happen? If it is not there, what will happen? Just you see that this is a pure electronic factor. This is called an electronic factor, which is dominating in this case first. The problem here is the acidity of benzoic acid. If you vary the substance, what will happen? If you come to the small point regarding the carbocations, tertiary carbocation, secondary carbocation, primary carbocation, we may have already knowledge on this. Always we are telling that tertiary carbocation is an very stable. Why? You see that carbocation means it is an sp2 hybridized carbon. Carbon positive means it doesn't have electron density on it. So what will happen, this deficient carbon, electron deficient carbon, if you are keeping a substituent on this carbon, let us assume in the first case, ethyl case, one methyl group is donating to the carbocation. In second case, two methyl groups are donating. In third case, three methyl groups are donating here. In this electronic factor, the same thing, if you are applying for amines, there's a tertiary amine, secondary amine, and primary amine. Basicity, if you want to see, secondary amines are more basic than tertiary and primary. The reason is their steric factor will come into the picture. You see how the relation is, relation between the steric factor and electronic factor. Here we can see the clearly electronic factor, but here the steric factor is not dominating. That means these three methyl groups are there, even though tertiary is having more stability because of electronic factor is dominating steric factor. Here three methyl groups are there, but still electronic factor is dominating steric factor. If you take the example of secondary amines basicity, there what will happen? Their steric factor will be dominating. That is the major difference between the steric factor and electronic factor. If we have a basic knowledge on this, and even we can solve some problems. And importance of stereochemistry, as I have discussed, this is from last 2 days we are seeing this, and we don't want to discuss much on this. We know very well the importance of stereochemistry, structural and isomers and optical isomers. If you have a basic knowledge on this, we can, and even this. And if you come to the last example here, cis diethyl stilbestrol, you see it is not a drug, but trans one is a drug. That's what structural elucidation will play a major role here. We have to confirm whether we are having a cis compound or trans compound. We should clearly distinguish the whether the synthesized product is having a trans structure or cis structure. Similarly, stilbene, even in photochemistry, we will be. Yesterday, madam might have discussed this. Axial cyclohexanol will undergo fast oxidation, and equatorial it will be slow. Here reactivity, stability, here the steric factors and electronic factors depends on the substituents and depends on the conditions, and it will vary. This stereochemistry we are discussing with respect to even electronic factor here. And one more thing, factors influencing the shape of organic molecules. We should have a basic knowledge on bond length, bond angle, and spatial orientation, and dihedral angle between two substituents, and steric interaction between two substituents, and resonance effect, and bond rotation. Let us take a simple example, biphenyl. You might have already known the biphenyl, and phenyl rings will be in this. One benzene ring will be in like this in one plane, another benzene ring will be in vertical. That means both are perpendicular to each other. You see that? And now the rotation of the CC bond will decide its the stability and reactivity. And sometimes what will happen, non-bonded steric repulsion will be happening through space, and hydrogen bonding also will play a major role in intramolecular and intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So with this, we have discussed the structural elucidation of organic compounds and structure will decide the functions and organic compounds and what knowledge we should have. With this, just we will go to the spectroscopy slides. Yes, I have not taken all the points for all the spectroscopies. I have taken only few important slides or information, whatever we may require for today's lecture. We'll see we are having two types of instrumental techniques. One is a physical technique and a chemical technique. Physical techniques means mostly instruments involved techniques we'll be using for structural elucidation. And within these instrumental techniques, we are having two types of techniques. One is destructive and non-destructive. Destructive means once if you take the sample for analysis and you cannot recover the sample. Non-destructive means we can recover the sample. Similarly, chemical methods, if you come, this, as I have told you, elemental analysis. If you are measuring, if you are determining the elemental analysis test, that is you cannot recover the sample. It is a destructive technique. And chemically, we are seeing by chemical reactions the presence of carbon, nitrogen, and heteroatoms and other functional groups. So this chemical method will take a long time to find the structural elucidation of organic compounds, because if you take simple example, that is cholesterol. For structural elucidation of cholesterol, it took around 35 to 40 years. See, nowadays, if you are having such a complex molecule, we can resolve the structure for 5 to 7 days, mostly. Not even 5 days, maybe 1 or 2 days we can. That is what the importance of instrumental techniques and structural elucidation. The difference between physical and chemical methods. Mostly we'll see, we don't want to go for introduction for spectroscopy. Spectroscopy is nothing but introduction of matter with radiation. That radiation may be UV visible, or radiation may be IR, or radiation may be micro or radio. First we'll see the IR spectroscopy and what is the simple basic principle of IR spectroscopy and what it will give us the information of organic compounds. If you are mostly we are sending UV rays on matter, and we are sending IR rays, and we are sending microwaves, we are sending radio waves. That's what UV, IR, NMR, and mass spectrometry we may not discuss, and elemental analysis. These two things we may not, but we will see this IR spectroscopy and NMR spectroscopy and UV visible spectroscopy. If we come to the IR spectroscopy, the molecules which are having a dipole moment or induced dipole moment, they will give the IR spectroscopy. That means they will absorb the IR radiation. If you are sending the IR radiation on any organic compound, what will happen? These organic compounds will absorb the IR radiation. When it will absorb, if dipole moment is not equal to 0, or otherwise sometimes what will happen, induced dipole moment will be there. What is induced dipole moment? Whenever if you are hitting your molecule or compound with IR radiation, what will happen? Molecules will induce dipole moment. Such cases, the IR spectroscopy will be observed for such type of molecules. This is what, and we are having two approaches, classical approach and quantum approach. Quantum approach can be explained based on the energy levels, and the classical approach will be explained based on SAEF, stationary alternate electric field. Bond is nothing but two electrons. So we know wherever charge is there perpendicular to the charge, we will be developing magnetic field. That's what the stationary alternate electric field. If number of bonds, if number of electrons are more, what will happen? SAEF strength will be more. SAEF strength is more, it will absorb more IR radiation. That's what this, with respect to these two approaches, we can explain the IR spectroscopy. Based on that, is what we can do now for our thing, for our today's lecture. Just now, this absorption capacity of your organic compounds will be influenced by certain factors. How will be your IR spectroscopy? Is an absorbance versus wave number. So whatever we are, interaction of matter with radiation, this radiation with respect to wave number we will be, with respect to energy we will be, with respect to absorbance we are going to find that we are keeping on y-axis, and wave number we are taking it on x-axis. The IR range is from 400 to 4000 centimeter inverse. So what will happen? The mass of the, let us take a simple molecule HCl. Chlorine mass is different from hydrogen. Hydrogen molecule, hydrogen. You see that force constant. If it is varied for any molecule, what will happen? The mass is indirectly proportional to the absorbing frequency. The molecule will absorb the energy at certain frequency. That's what, if you are increasing the mass, what will happen? This will be decreasing. This is an inverse relation. By seeing the formula, we can tell. And you see the simple example for CHCdCl. See, the wave number is decreased. That means what will happen if you are increasing the weight of any substituent or any atom, and it may not require, you see that clearly it was for vibration. Two things will happen if you are sending an IR radiation on organic compound. What will happen? Change in bond length will happen, or change in bond angle will happen. That's what here. Okay, CHCd and Cl. Hydrogen bonding, from FTIR spectroscopy we can find whether it is intermolecular hydrogen bonding or intramolecular hydrogen bonding. How we can find out the intramolecular hydrogen bonding? So let us take FTIR spectrum for different concentration. Hydrogen bonding here, for free hydroxyl compounds there will be peak at one position. For hydrogen bonded, the peak will be shifted to lower side. That is an indication. And conjugation, you see that conjugation is increased, wave number is decreased, and strain decreased, wave number decreased. And similarly, steric crowding, you see equatorial and axial, what happens to the wave number? This is what it decreased. And factors affecting the intensity of IR band. IR band will be in three types: strong, medium, and broad. And this amount of the absorbed energy of IR is based on that, it will vary, and concentration of the sample with respect to even hydrogen bonding as we have. And strength of the dipole moment. Strength of the dipole moment is increased, will be, for that example is C double bond O, C double bond C, C triple bond C. See that dipole moment is increased for C double bond O because the electronegativity difference between carbon and oxygen at higher frequencies. This is what the knowledge we require. And hydrogen bonding can be, and even isomerism can be. These are the frequency values for organic compounds. Selectively I have taken. See that all hydrogen bonding molecules, they will be giving peak at 3700 to 3100, and aromatic 3100 to 3000, CH 3000 to 2800, and aldehyde CH, not C double bond O. And C double bond O will be giving peak at this range. Magnetic resonance spectroscopy, I feel is, this itself may take much time, but I don't spend much time on this topic because it's an subject. You see, what will happen in nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy? You will be sending the radio wave on nucleus, proton nucleus and carbon nucleus. What will happen to this proton nucleus depends on the electronic factor or electron density on proton. Your radio wave absorption will take place. Now what will happen if electron density is more on the hydrogen nucleus? It will be shielded. If electron density is less, it is a d-shielded. That this is the major concept or major point you should understand in NMR. Based on this, we can classify the protons, whether our molecule is having all equivalent protons or non-equivalent protons. Let us take simple example, formaldehyde. We are having two hydrogens, whether this hydrogen and this hydrogen, they are having equal electronic factor or they are chemically equivalent. Okay. If you are taking CH3CHO, acetaldehyde, now we are seeing the non-equivalency. C double bond is same, one side is CH3, one side is H. That means we are having two types of hydrogens. Like this, we can distinguish this type of non-equivalent hydrogens by NMR technique. This is what, by using proton NMR, we can find out the number of non-equivalent protons. By using the carbon NMR, we can find out the non-equivalent carbons. And C13 NMR, we are not going to the C13 NMR, we will be discussing only proton NMR. And why we are going for 60 MHz instrument to 500 MHz instrument? Because you will get much information on 500 MHz instrument. I will tell you. 1 ppm, let us take what is a chemical shift in NMR. Here we are having a proton. Here we are having a proton. This is a reference and this is a sample. If reference is having certain electron density on its surrounding, sample also is having certain density on its surrounding. If both are same, let us, they will give a chemical shift or they will give NMR at the same value, that is at 0. That means there is no difference between this reference and sample. Now let us, if your sample is having higher electron density or lower electron density, what will happen? Either it may give precisional frequency of your proton nucleus will be different from a previous case, because you are varying the electron density on hydrogen nucleus. That is the concept. Based on that, we can find the non-equivalent hydrogens. And the chemical shift in NMR, the delta values, chemical shift is one of the unit which we can find whether it is an de-shielding proton or shielded proton. Okay, de-shielding means it doesn't have electron affecting the chemical shift values. See, electronegativity is there, anisotropy is there, solvent, hydrogen bonding. If you are increasing the electronegativity, what will happen? What if highly electronegative thing means? What will happen? It will accept the electron. That means it will decrease the electron density on hydrogen. This will become de-shielded. That is what de-shielded chemical shift values will be different, and shielded chemical shift values will be different. That's what you see. If we increase the electronegativity from bottom to top, and higher the electronegativity, higher the chemical shift value. Lower the electronegativity, lower the chemical shift value. Here you see the effect of electronegativity on chemical shift value and anisotropy effect. This is an purely a theoretical concept to explain the sp2 and sp carbons chemical shift thing. Normally we will be expecting chemical shift values should be in one order, sp3, sp2 and sp, but it is not like that. sp2 will be going towards higher side because of this anisotropy concept. See that alkenes, they will be orienting in that fashion, and these 4 protons are coming in paramagnetic region or de-shielded region, and that's what we are getting at higher chemical shift values. And hydrogen bonding on proton increases the delta values. And solvent effect we don't. And one more important thing in NMR is spin-spin splitting. And what is the beauty of NMR? NMR is like an We are sitting in our home and we are observing what happens in adjacent home. That is what the NMR. Simply, if you want to tell rudely, it is we are sitting in our home, but we are giving the information of adjacent home. That's what NMR will tell us. NMR will give an information of adjacent carbon hydrogens or adjacent carbon. Carbon NMR means it is giving an information of adjacent carbon. Hydrogen NMR means it is giving adjacent carbon hydrogens. Adjacent carbon is attached to 3 hydrogens or 2 hydrogens or 1 hydrogen. That we can find by seeing the NMR of the reference one. Okay. You see clearly here HA and HB, two types of protons are there. HA will give doublet and HB will give doublet because HA will have a two orientations, ground level and higher level. This HB will interact within two ways. That's what we are getting a doublet for this. Similarly, in reverse, HB will get a doublet. This type of pattern. This type of thing, you see, HA is giving triplet, HB will give doublet because HA is having two protons, N+1 signal will be. HA signal will be triplet, HB signal will be doublet. You see the beauty of NMR here. We are seeing the signal of HA, but it is giving triplet. If we are seeing the HB signal, it will be giving doublet. If you are seeing this, HA will be doublet, HB will be doublet. Here, three types of things you see here. HA, HB, HC. HA will give doublet because HB only one proton is there. HB, if you are taking adjacent, two sets of protons are there. That means 2 into 2. Here, what will happen? These two protons and these two protons, it will give a quintet. Okay, 5 signals, and HC will give doublet because adjacent only HB is there. This is what then the information we can get from NMR. And one more thing, singlet, doublet, triplet, how it will be quadret, quintet. First order spectrum means this is not a complete simple spectrum. So we can get the information. I don't know who is this fellow. The factors are yes, 1 minute. Here the concept called conversion of complex NMR spectrum to simple NMR spectrum. Sometimes they may use certain reagents to make it a simple spectrum, or we can go for higher field strength equipment. Applications of NMR: structural elucidation, hydrogen bonding, keto-enol isomerism, and fluxional behavior, proton exchange reactions, and dynamic behavior of molecules. All these things can be done by NMR alone. And you see, I have given certain molecules here. The benzene is having 6, all 6 protons are chemically equivalent. That's what only one signal we will be getting for benzene. Similarly, you find for this HA, HB, HC, 3 signals you will be getting for this molecule. Similarly, for adamantane, you will be having only 1, yes, 2 and 3 set you will be getting. Hydrogen bonding, similarly, free hydrogen bonding delta value will be low, and hydrogen bonded delta values will be very high. That is what one information we can get from this NMR. And keto-enol isomerism can be seen by NMR. Dynamic NMR, you see, NN-dimethyl formamide, this proton and C double bond N. This is a very flexinal, and that means it is a dynamic and it will be rotating always. So now what will happen, this because of CN rotation, these two methyls, we can see it as a single signal. Otherwise, we should see it as a double signal. Chemically, it should be non-equivalent. But if we, with respect to temperature, it will be. This is what a dynamic NMR or dynamic behavior or fluxional behavior of your molecule. And similarly, proton exchange reactions, these alcohols, carboxylic acids, amines, though amine is having two protons, and we can see it as an single signal, and it won't interact with adjacent carbon hydrogens. Proton, that means these protons are fastly exchanging with another hydroxyl or other amine or carboxylic acid. See that amine, we are getting only 2 peaks. This NH2 should get triplet, and NH2 should get quadrate, and this CH3 should get triplet, but it is not happening. This is only singlet we are getting for this methanol also. If you are taking a pure methanol, we can see the split up. OH hydrogen will be interacting with this, and these 3 protons are interacting with this. That's what doublet and quadrate will be. Similarly, for this also, neat or pure compound will give this this splitting. And we don't want to discuss magnetic resonance imaging. Okay, and UV visible spectroscopy. From UV visible spectroscopy, what we can get here, the presence of heteroatom, whether carbonyl group is there, either N to pi star transition is there, or pi to pi star transition is there or not, that we can get by seeing the UV value, and by seeing the epsilon value, we can. How it will be useful in structure? This still being lambda max, absorption maximum length will be different. Maximum lambda max is for trans compound, it is very high. For cis compound, it is very low, because the electron delocalization. Electron delocalization is very easy in this trans compound. Okay. Let us see the first problem. An organic compound A is giving an elemental analysis report that, so what is carbon is having 61%, hydrogen 15.2%, nitrogen 23.7%. When A is treated with nitrous acid, it is giving alcohol, and B contains carbon 60%, hydrogen 13%, remaining will be oxygen, and the B has a vapor density of 30. The meaning of this vapor density is we are having a direct relation between vapor density and molecular weight. Instead of giving molecular weight, here indirectly they have given vapor density. A on warming with chloroform and caustic potash, that is KOH, it is giving C compound. So now C on reduction, it is giving methyl isopropyl amine. Methyl isopropyl amine. That is, it is a secondary amine. On nitrogen, one methyl group is there, one isopropyl group is there, one hydrogen is there. This is what the product D. Okay. So now we have to identify what is A and what is B. Before going to find out this A and B, we are going to solve this problem by 3 steps. One is determination of empirical formula first, and determination of molecular weight second, and identification of the products. Okay, how will you find out the empirical formula? Simple, just we are writing the elemental percentage, and we are going to find out the relative number of atoms. Now, carbon atomic weight is 12, hydrogen atomic weight is 1, nitrogen atomic weight is 14. With corresponding atomic weights, if you divide this elemental percent, what we get? We get relative number of atoms. Okay, relative number of atoms we will be getting. Which is having less number of atoms, relative number of atoms? Nitrogen is having. So now, what we do, just with 1.7 we are dividing other elements. We will be converting into simplest ratio by dividing the relative number of atoms by lowest relative number of atoms. What we get now? carbon 3, hydrogen 9, nitrogen 1. Now what will be the empirical formula? C3H9N. That is what the empirical formula of compound A. Okay. Now compound B. The carbon percentage is 60, hydrogen 13.33%, remaining is oxygen. Now we will divide this percentage, elemental percentage with atomic weights with 12, 1 and 16. The corresponding relative number of atoms 5, 13.33 and 1.63. Now lowest relative number of atoms oxygen 1.63. With this number just we have to divide other two elements relative number of atoms. Now 5 by 1.63 and 13.33 by 1.63 and 1.63 by 1.63 we get C3H8O. This is what empirical formula of compound B. Now determination of molecular weight. Now empirical formula of A is C3H9N, empirical formula of B is C3H8O. A molecular weight. So now they have given vapor density. Vapor density into 2 will give us a molecular weight, that is 2 into 30 C. Compound B molecular weight is 60. Now let us predict the reaction. A, on treating it with HNO2 it is giving C3H8O, that is compound B. A, on treating it with chloroform and KOH it is giving on C. And C again on reduction it is giving methyl isopropyl amine. This is what the final product. Now we have to find out what is A and what is B. Let us simply predict. We are getting amine on reduction, but what might be the reactant, that is C. It may be isocyanate, because on left side chloroform and KOH, it is a specific test for amines, that is a carbylamine test. Now any amine, if you are treating it with this chloroform and KOH, what happens? It will form isocyanate. This isocyanate on reduction it will give amines. C may be isocyanate, and the isocyanate means N triple bond C. Isopropyl group will be there on nitrogen and N will be having triple bond and C. That is what isocyanate. Now, how we are predicting now? Just you see that by seeing this amine, reduction means just we are thinking it in reverse manner. It might be isocyanate. This isocyanate means it should be definitely primary amine, because primary amines on treating it with chloroform and KOH, it will be giving us isocyanate. And primary amines on treating it with HNO2 at lower temperature, it will give us alcohols. Aromatic amines means it will give diazonium salts. Now these aliphatic amines, they are giving directly alcohols. This is what the prediction, simply by using our intuition, and just we are identifying the compound. Just see that this amine precursor may be isocyanate. We are predicting for isocyanate precursor might be amine. We are predicting and we are writing and we are comparing the structure with our empirical formulas and molecular weight. Since it is matching, now we are confirming that A is isopropyl amine and B is isopropyl alcohol. This is one type of model. Next problem is the organic compound is having C7H12O2. Okay, molecular formula, and exhibited the following NMR data. So now we have to find out the structure of this compound. It is a challenging thing by using only NMR, if you want to predict, it will take some time, but anyway we will try. Okay, by seeing this NMR data, what we are now, the delta value is 7.1 and delta value is 5.9. There is no chance for aromatic protons for 5.9, only 7.1 is there and it corresponds to one proton. By seeing this one proton, and we cannot confirm or we cannot the presence of benzene ring, because if this single H proton is giving one Dubsov triplet, remaining 5 or other signals or other substrates will be there on benzene ring. Let us see first what may be the Dubsov triplet. Dubsov triplet means one side it may be single hydrogen and other side it may be two hydrogens. In that case only we will be getting Dubsov triplet, and one more Dubsov triplet is there. The same substrate, another adjacent hydrogen, if it is having, we will get the same pattern. Now, by seeing these values, there is no aromatic ring, but Dubsov triplet means we are seeing the signal of this blue color hydrogen, and adjacent one hydrogen is there. In this side, two hydrogens are there. Dubsov triplet. This hydrogen will interact with this and it is giving doublet, and again this doublet will interact with these two hydrogens and it will give us triplet, Dubsov triplet. The value of this thing is 7.1. Normally the alkenes chemical shift values will be from 4 to 6, but due to the allylic protons here and the chemical shift values were gone to 7.1. So one more signal, Dubsov triplet, that is 5.9. It's correspond to singlet hydrogen. Okay. Now the same, this blue color hydrogen will interact with this red, and the red color hydrogen signal will be observed at 5.9, and it is a Dubsov triplet. Now the point is the presence of double bond is there, and the double bond is attached to methylene group. This is what our confirmation from first two signals. Moreover, this coupling constant values also you see for trans and cis for structural isomerism or geometrical isomerism. What this J values will suggest us, this blue color hydrogen will have a coupling with this hydrogen, and this blue color hydrogen will have a coupling with these two hydrogens. That is what we are observing in the form of J values, that is coupling constant values. Next signal is corresponds to two protons and quadrate. That means CH2 is attached to CH3. By seeing this pattern itself, we can tell it is an ethyl fragment. But the value we have to, chemical shift value is 4.1. And one more thing is CH2 protons, but signal is multiplet. Signal multiplet means you see that CH2 attached to, it may be CH3, and another side it may be some other protons, some other number of protons. And one more thing is 3H triplet. This signal may be related to this, because already we have observed this quadrate. We have observed the quadrate at this 4.1 and one more triplet. This corresponds to 3H. Now CH2 and CH3 ethyl. By seeing this 4.1 and 1.25, we are confirming that the presence of ethyl group. Okay, and one more signal is at 0.9, 3H, and the signal is triplet. Let us see what it may be. This is what the structure. For this green color we are getting quadrate, for this pink color we are getting multiplate, for this pink color we are getting multiplate. Okay, multiplate and quadrate peaks were solved now. And one more thing is the presence of ethyl group, because here if you are keeping two more hydrogens, what will happen? Just let us see. First signal dubs of triplet, second signal dubs of triplet, and this might be the fragment. Okay, and coupling constant is there. That's what this H will be either in transposition or cis position. And one more signal tells us the presence of ethyl group and the presence of one more ethyl group. By seeing all these values, and you can calculate the number of protons now. Two ethyl groups means, you see that here corresponds to 3H, and here 2H, totally 5 protons, and 2, 7 protons, 8, 9 protons. Now, by attaching these fragments to each other, we are predicting the solution, or we are confirming the solution. Now, let us see each value, how which fragment was connected to which fragment. Let us see now. We are having two oxygens also. That oxygens will be in the form of either ester or either phenol. If phenol is there, exchangeable peak we should observe, but it is not there. And now we confirm that there is no OH, only COO will be there. Either this oxygen will be attached to this carbon or this side. So now first signal 7.10, just you see dubs of triplet, and second signal 5.9 dubs of triplet, 7.1 dubs of triplet, and one more signal is for corresponds to 2 protons, and it is giving quadrate. Definitely it might be O attached CH2, because O attached CH2 will give signal at 4.1. That is one indication. And one more signal, that is triplet for CH3. And one more signal, that is triplet for this CH3. And one more signal, multiplet for these two hydrogens. Why multiplet? And one side 1 proton is there, one side 3 protons are there. Due to the interaction of this dubs of quadrate, the dubs of quadrate only in the form of multiplet we are writing. Okay, this is what the second model. With the NMR data itself, we have predicted this structure. Kindly see once again what we have done. We know the molecular formula, we know 2 oxygens are there. By seeing the signal values, the oxygen will be attached to carbon, okay, and one more oxygen will be in the form of carbonyl, because the carbonyl attached ethylenic proton is giving both this. Already this double bond will be giving value, the chemical shift value at 4 to 6. Because of this carbonyl group, what happens? This value was gone to 7.1. That means it has gone to deshielding region. That's what chemical shift was increased. And now this side 5.9, this side multiplet. By seeing this 4.1, just normally the oxygen attached CH2 will be having 4.1. The carbon attached CH2 will be having 2.1. Moreover, it is multiplet. Moreover, it is quadrate. If you distinguish this pink color multiplate and quadrate, we could be able to solve the given problem. This is what important step in this problem. Problem number 3, an organic compound with molecular formula C9H10O3 exhibited the following spectral data from IR spectroscopy: 3400 centimeter inverse, 1680 centimeter inverse. By seeing these two peak values, the presence of OH can be and the presence of carbonyl compound can be. That means either in the form of ester or either in the form of carboxylic acid. The peaks can be predicted. That is, it may be a carbonyl group and OH group. Both are there. And let us see the values, chemical shift values now. Delta value 7.8, delta value 7.0, and delta value 6.5. Now these three, by seeing these three values, definitely we can confirm that aromatic ring is there. And the all aromatic protons are how many now? 1H, 1H, 1H. 3 protons are there on the benzene ring. Remaining, instead of 2 hydrogens or remaining substitute positions, we can predict the substituents. Now let us see, by seeing the 3 signals, we are predicting the benzene ring is like this. Skeleton of the compound is like this. Hydrogen, hydrogen, and hydrogen. Because doublet, doublet, and singlet. By seeing the multiplicity, this hydrogen will give doublet with this hydrogen will give doublet with this, and one more hydrogen on benzene ring. This was an isolated thing. Now it will give singlet. By seeing the values doublet, doublet, singlet at 7.8, 7.0, and 6.5, we are predicting that it is a tri-substituted benzene. Okay, tri-substituted benzene. Our molecular formula is C9H10O3. Now C6H3 was, the presence of the C6H3 fragment was confirmed. From IR, COOH was confirmed. Now the COOH, we are having 3 oxygens and carbonyl group is there, OH is there. Either 2 hydroxys should be there or 1 carboxylic acid or 1 OH should be there. Now by seeing the chemical shift value at 5.8 and it is a D2O exchangeable. By seeing this exchangeable peak, we can confirm the presence of OH on benzene ring. And one more signal is corresponds to C3 protons and it is a singlet. That means it doesn't have any hydrogens on adjacent atoms. Now, so what we can, either it may be OCH3 or it may be CH3 or it may be attached to COCH3. There are 3 possibilities. Now, OH is confirmed and the CH3 is confirmed. Now the CH3 is attached to either oxygen or directly to the benzene ring. By seeing these values, 2.3 means definitely this CH3 is attached to CO. That is the confirmation we are getting by seeing the signal. Okay, that means COCH3 is there. And one more thing, 5.8 OH is there. COCH3 is there, OH is there. 2 oxygens over. Now one more thing we have to identify, either it may be OCH3. Yes, it is OCH3. Now we can confirm the presence of these 3 substituents. Delta 7.8 doublet 1 proton and 7.0 1H doublet and one more singlet 6.5. These all benzene, this The hydrogens which are present on benzene ring, this blue color and red color chemical shift values. Now if you come to the substituents, phenolic group, OH group is giving peak at 5.8. Now 3.9, chemical shift is 3.9. Definitely it should attach to oxygen. CH3 is attached to oxygen. That's what OCH3. And chemical shift value of 2.3, definitely this is attached to CO group, or otherwise this oxygen may be here, or otherwise this oxygen is here. Okay, so we can even write a combination of this, but these values will give us invaluable information. The oxygen attached CH3 is there, definitely OCH3, and CO attached CH3 is there. If we confirm these substituents, so now we can fix the substituents. Finally, these chemical shift values are matching with our predicted structure. Problem number 4, an organic compound which is having a molecular formula of C10H12O2 and it exhibited the following NMR data and kindly predict the structure. The delta value is 7.8, delta value is 6.8, delta value is 4.2. That means delta is 7.8, delta is 6.8. And we can expect or we can predict definitely by seeing these two chemical shift values the presence of double benzene ring. And moreover 2H and 2H, the signal is corresponds to 2 protons. That means we are having an disubstituted benzene, symmetrically disubstituted benzene. That means definitely it should be 1,4 substituted benzene. How it will be? It will be like this. In this case only the benzene will be having this splitting pattern, okay. This hydrogen will be giving doublet, this hydrogen will be giving doublet, and these two top hydrogens are chemically equivalent, these bottom two hydrogens are chemically equivalent. Now two signals we are observing for these 4 protons, and orthocoupling we are observing. And one more, by seeing the chemical shift values 4.2 and 2.4 and 1.25, just let us see here 2.4 3H singlet, definitely this should attach to carbonyl group. Oxygens are there, either it may be in the form of carbonyl or in the form of OR alkoxy group. Now by seeing values we no need to get confused at this point, because by seeing the value 2.4 we can confirm that this CH3 is attached to CO carbonyl group, and 4.2 definitely it has attached to oxygen. Now the 3H triplet J value 7.2 signal corresponds to this CH3. Now ethyl group, ethoxy group and COCH3 groups are the substituents. Now we can substitute these values on benzene ring. Now we get this compound. Now this compound will, or the this experimental NMR chemical shift values are matching with this structure. Let us see once. These 2 hydrogens are chemically equivalent, and these 2 hydrogens are chemically equivalent. These 2 hydrogens are interacting with this hydrogen and it is giving doublet. These blue color hydrogens are interacting with this red color hydrogen and it is giving doublet. Next, oxygen attached hydrogens, they are giving the value, or they are giving the chemical shift value at 4.2, and pink color hydrogens, they are giving the value is at 1.25, and CO is attached to CH3. This CH3 is giving singlet because there is no any adjacent hydrogens to split this CH3. The CH3 is giving a singlet, that is at 2.4. This is the solution for this problem 4. Okay.